So I went through the trouble of, putting my problem in that it would not work on Discord, does not work on Firefox or WaterFox, Firefox-based browsers, but it does work in the app.
Did you
It
make sure
does
you told
work
them it was
in
Linux?
Chromium. Oh yeah. You have to. That's one of the fields you have to fill out.
Okay.
Your operating system, what the problem is, what you did to resolve it, etc.
It'll be interesting if they get back with you on that, or if there's any response to it.
Yeah, there were other people complaining about the same thing. I don't know if they filled out the format like I did, but they should be aware. I mean, this isn't a browser. It's not like the operating system should even matter.
You wouldn't think so, but I mean, it is relying on the audio-video stack that sits underneath it to work. And then, of course, if you use a Flatpak, it's even more complicated.
Right.
Which
but
I don't.
Day to day, when I'm not here where I'm using the browser, it's just chat. It's just text chat. Like day to day is what I'm using. When I come here, I close down my browser and I use the app for this reason because I'm using the video and the audio and all that.
Right. Oh crap! I forgot. I was supposed to get the latest episode of Distro Hoppers Digest published. I haven't done it yet. I'll have to get on that. Because I think it was Monday.
How do you zoom here on this? Can you zoom in on Discord?
Camera controls.
Camera controls.
There's an app called Camera CTRL.
Oh, that is the one you... Oh, all right. I was using OBS before. That might have been why it was stuttering.
The OBS interface uses the exact same hardware APIs to control all that as camera controls, which is nice. But, if you're anywhere besides OBS, you've got to use camera controls. It's a Flatpak. It'll be in the software center.
Yeah, I had it once, and then I thought, I'll just give this other thing a try.
You don't have to use a Flatpak. I used to use it briefly before I switched cameras, and I think I installed it through either the Mint store or
let me see, because it wasn't
command line.
Don't even see a Flatpak for it. Camera CTL.
CTRLS.
Yeah.
Maybe
controls. Yeah.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, I only see a Flatpak unless there's a PPA or something somewhere.
Maybe that's how I did it.
There's always a PPA somewhere.
There is. Whether or not it's kept up to date is another thing.
Yeah, right. You may not want to use it, but it's out there somewhere.
Do I have time to drop?
Nope. Don't push the red button.
I guess it answers that question.
What's this button do?
Hey Jim, you said there's no brain interface with computers yet. Isn't Elon working on that right now?
Oh yeah, let's get on that.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong,
someday.
Right?
They design it for his giant head, and it doesn't fit anyone else.
Oh God!
Gosh.
Just the first thing that came to mind. I don't know.
Perfect. All right.
Oh well, I'll just use that. That'll have to do. Look like I'm some sort of white head.
Yeah, you're looking quite strange, glowing with your blurry background, glowing in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of washed
I'm
out.
against, as a general rule, I'm against blurry backgrounds, but hey, you do you.
No, I don't like it myself, but I can just see my coat and jacket hanging there.
I don't mind it. I think it's okay.
You need to get you one of these backgrounds. They're like $10.
Well, I've got all sorts of things, but I mean, I should have set it up. I thought it would have been easier. Anyway, my bad. Every week's a learning curve.
Oh God, isn't it though? Jeez.
Just maybe I could just move it in like this. That might be better. You can't see anything then.
You have nice teeth.
Laminated. Hello, is my nose clean? Sorry. Maybe British humour. Is this the silence bit or?
Oh, I'm looking for the
Wasn't
show
sure
on
if it was
YouTube.
the silent moment.
Speaking of PPAs, anybody see where Canonical's components are under DDoS attacks by
Yeah.
Iraqi group that supposedly hired a DDoS mercenary to go after them? I'm looking at their status pages. PPA.launchpad.net is still down, or it was down for 6 hours. It was up briefly, and now it's down again. So anyway,
You would think by now we would figure out a way to stop DDoS attacks, like
yeah, I was just surprised. I was like, I thought Cloudflare had figured this out.
Yeah, so did I. I thought that was it. I thought, wouldn't you?
they're probably not using it.
Well, that could be the other thing too. Yes. Yeah.
But I mean, just even in the protocols themselves, to just be able to find a way to rate limit or just do something to, because I mean, DDoS is essentially just too much for the size of the pipe, more or less. So I mean, you're just clogging and you'd think that would be like, okay, well, obviously this was just some stupid oversight in the design. Like, why don't we just come up with a way to make it so that you just, reject everything? I don't know, because then of course you don't know what the legit versus the DDoS, especially if you're using a botnet and all that. So I know it's complicated, but you'd think, considering how often it is and how impactful it is financially for companies, that someone would have just been like, all right, here's how we're going to do this. And yeah, maybe Cloudflare is the best solution right now, but I don't know. I've been using Cloudflare for a long time, and they're good for certain things, but other things I don't know.
Yeah.
I do like their bot detection better than like CAPTCHA, because it's just a lot more user friendly.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Jeez.
So
That made a
Some
difference.
of those other ones are awful.
You're muted, Charlie.
Not live, are we?
Yes.
Yes, we are live.
Serious? I'm doing all my.
oh, but it's not. We're not doing like a show. We're just
Roundtable is just.
as Roundtable is.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
if ever you're gonna just jerk around and do stuff, like this is the time. So
right,
Jerk around.
Makes it
That's
more
why I got
interesting.
my camera up this high.
that's right. Bill's not wearing any pants. Nothing.
Never do.
That's it.
Just don't stand up like Joe did, and it's like,
Oops, is my camera still on?
yeah, it was like it was.
Did I do that?
Oh man. You need a pair of like boxers that look like pixelated junk. That would actually be really funny.
Timu's your friend there. You can get everything on Timu.
I'm
You
sure.
get these.
I'm sure.
You get the aprons, the t-shirts with a big pop belly. There's so many good things out there you can buy.
Classy. Oh gosh.
Yeah, very classy.
That, friends, was sarcasm.
Yes, if I'd
could
said
see-
classy like that to an AI bot, would it have understood that I was being sarcastic?
Boy, it seems like that would be the first thing they would work on, because that's all anybody does.
Right? It would have been like, oh, you're right, it is classy. I'll find you everything on Temu like that. Here you go. I'm being helpful, right?
But there's a lot of work. I can see how difficult that would be, because sarcasm, the mechanics of sarcasm changes from one language to the other a lot. So
let me just ask now and see. Hello, Leo. Do you understand sarcasm?
Yeah, I get sarcasm. Hit me with some, and I'll show you.
Oh, well, you can't tell it ahead of time. That's
I can't think of what
ruins the experiment.
Yeah, you gave it the old shot across the bow. So now it's ready for you.
Sure, I understand it. Just go ahead and give me an example.
That's exactly what Elon would tell you.
Yeah, that's right. Let me learn now while you're...
That's what Trump would say. Yeah, I understand it. You know, and if you think about it, I invented sarcasm. I'm probably the best in the world if you think about it.
But isn't that the way, especially on podcasts, people they don't understand what the question is, so they quickly jump on, do a search, and then, oh yes, I blah 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 blah, and then they start being all expert because they've just read it literally 2 seconds before.
Well, you just outed me right there.
Yeah, jeez, man. Give away the secret sauce. Jeez. You're not supposed to say the quiet things out loud.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
Oh, no, sorry.
Now you know how the sausage is made.
Is it,
I spend
is
all
this going to be
week
another
learning.
another title? What was the one previously called? Occupation stupidity or something. I can't remember now what it was.
They call that foot in mouth disease. Oh, my.
Yeah.
I'm going to
So
get some
what-
decaf.
Actually, there are enough human beings in the world who don't get sarcasm. And I listen, it's not a nice thing to say probably, but my wife is one of those people who will take things at face value first and then assume someone might be doing something other. And I'm the exact opposite, where I assume someone's taking the piss, as the Brits would say. So, but yeah, she's known me for 30 years, and I still will look at her and say something to me that is so obviously sarcastic, and she's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Oh my God." Have you met me?
I mean, I had to, when I was tour guiding, I had to be really careful. You couldn't.
Oh,
You couldn't make any sarcastic jokes.
bet,
If you
I
made
bet.
anything at all, and people either took offence or especially if it was historical, people would come and have a word with you afterwards and say, "I don't think that's true." Joan of Arc didn't live just down the street there over there. I'm sure she didn't.
oh my.
Back to canonical DDoS issue. I just did a Claude AI search, and it appears that they are not using Cloudflare. And
Yeah, I wouldn't think they would be. I mean, they should, I think.
well,
Or
yeah,
something.
there's
Yeah.
the forum, I guess, says that people asked the same question that I asked. And they said apparently, well, the speculation is they're not using Cloudflare because it's not, quote, open source, quote unquote. So, but
I assume that would be, yeah, of course, that's the line they're going to toe. But
right, yeah, exactly.
and it's also why whenever a serious corporation who's trying to make a decision about software, and they say, "Oh, well, if you're so inflexible about, your stack, that you won't use, you won't take the right precautions simply because it's the wrong license or something."
Right.
It's an argument that could be made against.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And then you have the ones that are extremist, like Stallman, and these
right.
over the edge unicorn open source zealot. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, that's the interesting thing now about the new Ubuntu. It's no longer really, well, I think there is still a few, but will it next time not be GNU Linux anymore? Because all the GNU parts are being replaced. So they're saying that might be the first time that, I mean, officially it's GNU Linux because all the underlying code, the parts, I can't remember the title. Like move and copy and things like that. These are all all GNU, but now they've all been replaced, of course, by Rust equivalents. So maybe no longer it's called GNU anymore.
Okay, I was trying to
Yeah.
figure out what you were referring to GNU, because that means different things to different people. GNU.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And,
it's not the large bird that runs around, Australia.
Right.
That's sarcasm, I think, there with
yeah. Yeah, it's funny. You don't hear, well, at least I don't hear much of that debate anymore about, well, is it really open source? Is it, and then is it truly GNU open source? And then yada, yada, yada. So,
core utilities. That's the word I was thinking of.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what they're saying, is that it's not GNU because it doesn't have that base, but that's where you'd see, like, maybe wouldn't GNU consider doing something in a newer language? I don't know. Or does it really matter, I guess?
Well, it did to Stallman, even though he was very clear that you had to call it GNU Linux, which is,
Yeah.
it's argumentative that it's, arguably correct that, it's his core utilities. So it really should officially be GNU Linux because it's the two parts that make it up. But
Well, and GNU is under GPL and Rust stuff is under MIT. I mean, not inherently, but it's just, that's, I guess, what it is for Ubuntu. Well, maybe it is. Maybe all Rust stuff is MIT. Yeah, I know people pay a lot of attention to the licensing. And I guess the problem I've always had with it is enforcement. And I know you have the Free Software Foundation and stuff like that who have, an amount of money available for enforcement, and they've gone after some people, but they've also helped with patent trolls and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of intellectual property theft or misuse, of open source licenses where people don't give attribution or contribute back, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I know when we were starting to adopt open source at my company, when I was working there, like, it was like, that mindset just doesn't occur to, if you're so used to enterprise software and sales and support and all that is a very specific set of, like, players and, functions, like the way that that stuff is licensed and renewed and paid for and all of that. And so when you try to fit free software in there, sometimes it's very much like square peg round hole, like, where it's less about, it's not the cost, it's the license and how do we stay in on the right side of that. And so, whereas I think a lot of people, it's
bit
like
of debate. Sorry, I was just going to say there's a bit of debate at the moment about, people not really paying too much attention to the licenses when they start out. So they're all very enthusiastic at the beginning to be all open source and using the GPL license and AGPL and all the other various ones. But when they start to get bigger, then they find that they're not, it might not be the right fit. So people should be a little bit more careful when they start out. I mean, this is all coming up because of Only Office and the Euro Office. So these discussions have come about because of it. So, I mean, they've tried to sidestep a little bit by adding bits to the AGPL, but now which one is it now? Which organization?
What happened with the Collabora people? Yeah, like, they kicked out all the Collabora developers and stuff, who were the ones that were.
Well, just on the point of the Euro Office, though, now the Free Software Foundation has come out because they're the ones that control or they know more about the licenses than anybody else because they wrote most of them. They've actually come out now and said, no, Only Office cannot make these changes. You can't just add a little bit extra in to say, in case of Only Office, you must use our name and you must use our logo. So unfortunately, that company started with all the enthusiasm for open source and used the GPL to get more people interested. But now they've made so much, they've added so much to their product. Now they really want to try and lock it down, but they can't, basically, because the license doesn't allow it.
Yeah. And I think that comes, I mean, some of that mentality comes back to the free as in beer versus free as in, free speech. And yeah, I think a lot of companies see that free as in beer side of things where it's like, well, we don't have to pay as long as it's something we can just use, but then run afoul of compliance with the licensing because they don't understand it, or they don't really care because they don't think anybody's paying attention, or whatever the case is. But yeah, and I'd say now, I mean, it's more than likely, whereas in the past, a startup or a major corporation might be hesitant or not use much in the way of open source. But I would think that's kind of flipped around by now. I mean, maybe there's certain sectors where you have to be really careful about what you're using and the type of assurances that need to be in place and all of that stuff. But like if you're doing anything Department of Defense, and there's certain like contracts and stuff where the compliance is very difficult, and you have to have the all of that stuff certified that you're using certain things, and anyway, the accountability more or less behind it. And I know we didn't go after a lot of those types of contracts because it was just so difficult to work with the VA and that type of stuff. So it was potentially lucrative if you could get through all the red tape, but just very difficult because of that. So yeah, but I think people have seemed to be getting better at that in general. I think the idea of open source is becoming, the Ballmers of the world who saw it as like this evil, are fewer and far between. And, younger people, I think, just see it as more of I do think the licenses can be confusing though. And it is like a point of contention that I have where, that license makes a big difference in a lot of ways. It's why I like things like the MIT license, where it's just do whatever the hell you want, versus attribution and all of that stuff. So I don't know.
Was it Redis or whoever changed their license to they made up a license when, I don't know who was at AWS at
Amazon. Yeah, it was. I think it was Amazon.
That
I'm pretty sure
they came up and made their own.
Might have been Google, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was Amazon.
No, it was Amazon. Amazon was using their without giving anything back at all. So they changed the license, and of course upset everybody else at the same time. I mean, there was a fork from it. I don't remember the name of it now.
Yes.
It's not,
yep, there was.
The licenses are so confusing, and it's really even, I mean, and especially now with these patent trolls who buy licenses and then attack. Their whole job is just to buy up a license that they can use to profit from. It's really bizarre.
It seemed like that was pretty active about 8-10 years ago. Is that still pretty active, patent trolls? I don't hear much about it anymore.
You don't hear as much of it now, but I mean, at least a couple of years ago. But I mean, maybe it's just not big news anymore. It's just happening so often. Often things, because you hear it so often.
It seems like it was ever since that GNOME case where the patent trolls found something in Shotwell that looked proprietary, tried to take them to court. GNOME raised a big old bunch of money and beat them, but then there was some grumbling in the community because a lot of people paid into it because the GNOME was going to go after patent trolls generally and put a stop to it, but they seem to come to some sort of agreement, but we haven't really seen anything since then, and that's been at least a couple of years ago, maybe more. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. The GNOME case was like a big one to
Yeah.
fight back against the trolling companies or individuals or whatever. And yeah, so
See, the Redis one is another good example of, you start with all good intention, but down the road you suddenly discover that you've made the wrong choice in license.
well, yeah, it's like Eric said though. There are some, especially enterprise companies that are making, printing money. They don't feel like they should contribute finance back to
Right,
or get
that's right.
attribution or anything like that. Hey, you said it was open source, so we're going to run with it. So,
Yeah.
where they could give the open source community $100 million every year, and it's like the one of the bonus money for one of the executives or something. Would be anything, but they don't think that way and say, well, why should we pay for it when we can get it for free?
Well,
So
I mean, users have the same. A lot of users have the same thing as well. They,
yeah, true.
so
Yeah,
few
yeah.
people can contribute. It's all. Some people have the principle that they don't want to contribute, and some just don't have the finances, and some just think, why should I give any money? Unfortunately, that's why projects just disappear. Is because they're not getting any money at all. And that's why big companies, I think, stick with proprietary stuff, because at least they know they'll be there later on. It's such a risk if you jump in on something that you think is, that will be a great fit for your company, and then they just disappear.
Yeah, the companies, like you said, if they get something from a proprietary company, they at least know they'll be around for a while because they're interested in keep making money until they get
Yeah, I mean, there's
acquired.
more chance of it. I mean, they do disappear as well, but
Yeah, they
but
get acquired.
it's
And
more likely. Yeah, you've got to have some sort of sustainable. You've got to find how they're going to sustain it before you invest in it. Really, you've got to see how the people are. If you're going to put all your business into something, you've got to see that it's got a viable business model. It's just doing it for free on volunteers isn't really a good thing. It's like now with having the big discussions, so many discussions over Brave charging $60 for their Brave Origin. I paid it because I think it's. But I wanted to use the Android app, even though it's free on Linux. I still feel that we need to contribute in some way. I mean, Brave probably is not the best one to contribute to in some way, because that means the Perplexity offered them $1 billion, so it does have quite a value to Brave already. But I still feel it's worth the money. People say, well, no, why should we pay just to take out things? Well, the things you're taking out are the things that make that company money and make the browser possible. So if you've got other ones like Helium, which is a fantastic browser, but the progress is slow because there's very limited people involved, and you can't sync your extensions or your bookmarks without third-party tools. So it's a very tricky thing, isn't it?
And I think that if someone like you finds use in that kind of thing, and the company, it makes sense to do that, because I doubt you're the only person that sees that value. And one of the biggest problems I have with Brave as a browser is that exactly the stuff they're yanking out of there, which is all of that crypto weirdness that I've never quite understood. But yeah, I mean, I could imagine, and I just personally think there's nothing wrong with charging for software. And I know that's a very kind of capitalist, like corporate closed system, type of thinking, but it also means that you're supporting and giving back. I mean, that is the transaction, right? In open source, it's kind of like there's no expectation, I guess, that there's a financial incentive, and that's fine if you're doing something simply because you want to learn, or you just have an interest. That's fine. But if you expect something to exist longer term and you're not willing to support it, financially or otherwise, then it seems very one-sided and very sort of like, privileged kind of thing where it's like, well, I'm just gonna, take take someone's effort, basically someone's labor, and yes, they're giving it away, but does that not mean that I have some responsibility to, I don't know, give back in some way? So I've started,
and people will give. People do give. I mean, they've found, KDE has found that just putting up their little flag, that they had massive contributions from it. So just giving a little hint to the people. Now GNOME does it, and they're saying that more software now is going to use the same thing. Just a little reminder to people that it does take money to keep these things going.
Yeah.
So which would be interesting to see. Unfortunately, we might be buried in these little flags every time. If they do it subtly, once a month, but not like every time you open it up and then you suddenly get the screen appearing asking you for money every second. And people think that's going to become old very quickly. But but maybe once every few months a little flag pops up just to remind people that it's not free.
Yeah, and I think it also just conditions people, again, back to the free as in beer versus free as in choice. Like, nothing is free, right? I mean, if anything's come out of the last 15 years, I think it should be that people now seem to understand something that most people in the IT sphere at least understood all along, which was there's no such thing as a free lunch or free beer. It may not cost you money, but there was something you were trading there, and maybe there are situations, and of course open source is one of the few where it really can be free. But in terms of a commercial product, like a commercial enterprise, it's irresponsible for them to put money into something that they can't reasonably expect a return on. And so the idea that, companies are putting things out and that you're just using it for free, is, I mean, I've always known that. I mean, the instinct I've always known that, I'm trading, using Gmail or, whatever, there's a reason they're providing this service to me, and I'm willing to make that trade to get the value of the service, right? I'm giving them value for value. And, I think the problem with that, though, is that it's more opaque, right? If you are just giving them some money, it's a very clear above board type of transaction where, you've given them their value and you're getting your value from them in return. But whenever it's free is such a spectrum of things. It can mean simply that it is truly free, which isn't normally the case, or it could mean something as invasive as knowing everything about you and selling that data. And, as much as people like, some of the billionaires in this world would like to think that privacy isn't a right, or people don't have an expectation of privacy, I'd like to believe that is not the case, that we still do have some right to do that. Did you see this thing about Meta where they're requiring their employees to wear like a GoPro now so that they can literally record everything in their lives and use it, I guess, to feed their AI?
I don't think it was a GoPro, but they're putting software on their every employee's PC, laptop, or whatever to record what they're typing to use it for training their AI.
Oh, I heard it was actually a camera that was on them, not just on their PC. But maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah. See how that works. You talk about privacy. OMG, it's like, yeah.
Yep.
How well would that
go
in the EU if they tried to do that?
I don't know. It's also becoming a bit. I mean, if they spend enough money, I mean, for me, the whole. I mean, I'm not on Facebook anymore. I mean, I do have an account with Instagram for certain things, but it's just it's horrendous. I mean, I don't understand the United States. I mean, we have similar things here, but not this. What do you call it? Like lobbying. Mamma mia! Can somebody explain what lobbying is? Because for me, it just sounds like bribery.
Well, it's a couple things. It's money in politics in general, which is there was it used to be that you couldn't, the campaign finance laws made it such that, everything had to be very visible and there were limits and it couldn't come from certain organizations and that sort of thing because of conflicts of interest. And they repealed that. And this is during the Reagan era. Everything terrible that happened in this country happened during the Reagan era. I swear, I'm like, every day I figure out a new thing that he destroyed in America. But, or at least I don't think he did it. I think it was very, very much other interests within his. I don't think he had the capacity to do the things that happened. But anyway, yeah, so they changed campaign finance. So now money can not only come from different places, but the amounts that they can give are huge. And basically politics has become a game of how much money can you spend. And, so you don't win races, especially at a high level. Like, yeah, you might win a local race or something without a tremendous amount of money, even though there you have things like Musk coming in to, suddenly give $1 million to like a local candidate. And you're like, wait a minute, what is this? So yeah, so campaign finance is
it's like Meta now has spent, was it 20 million? Was it? I think it was a million, could be more, but they're spending it on trying to make politicians or forcing politicians to use the operating system based age verification just so they don't get into trouble anymore for showing things that should only be shown to 18-year-olds. But how can this happen? That, I mean, Britain's probably equally as bad, but it's just it's not doesn't seem to be as clear on the surface. They're a bit more underhand here. But it seems like part of your politics is that politicians get these bribes, or you call them.
It's a stupid game we play. Everybody gets. So, the Trump was drain the swamp, right? Drain the swamp, famously, drain the swamp, which means to everybody, that's kind of like okay, politicians are crooked. Nobody trusts them. We have to get rid of these people who accept money from lobbyists and on and on. And nothing changes. That's the thing. And nothing changes between the parties. So if you think that the Democrats don't do that, you're crazy, because they take just as much money from the wrong interests as anyone else. And yeah, it basically cuts out, it bastardizes democracy because it takes away the choice that an average citizen has. Your vote to get someone into office is really like, besides that and writing to your congressperson or protesting, like there's only a very limited amount that you can do. Once this person's in office, whether it's a congressman or a senator or who it is, then they are their ones that are there being lobbied to and taken out and shown favor and, all these, told whatever they're told. And so it's a nasty business. And the fact that it ever worked is sort of a minor miracle. And the fact that it's falling apart now doesn't shock me. I wish I could say that I'm surprised, but the fact that, because every time something new happens that just is shocking to me, I'm like, there isn't already a law or a control or something in place that makes it that you can't do that. And it's like, no, everything was run sort of on a gentleman's handshake, and like, oh, well, the separation of powers was more or less ideological than like literally set in stone. And it's just, yeah, there's a lot about I'm learning about.
Yeah, at least now that from what it seems that they're sort of backpedaling a little bit on open source and Linux when it comes to the age verification. I believe that Colorado is sort of like they're changing changing things, but I don't know what this major federal bill that you have going through. That seems to be a sort of blanket over everywhere to say that operating systems will require it. But but it seemed that the owner of System 76, he had been lobbying, but I'm not sure financially or just by talking to people. So maybe I shouldn't really use the word lobbying, but to get the exemption to open source, because young people have grown up, they learn a lot from open source. They can experiment with it. So it's interesting to see how that goes at the moment.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, laws can be passed and repealed, and orders can be overturned, and it's just a lot of it is just sort of back and forth. What's enforceable, what isn't, what court will agree with something, what won't. I mean, I've had so much frustration with the legal system and the idea that it, I mean, I know we're infallible humans, and people have different opinions on things, but you kind of have this idea of like right and wrong, or at least this sensibility of right and wrong, and what I thought it meant to, what that meant in this country, and I just don't think I understand. I think Doge was the single most shameful, disgusting thing that's been done to this country, and I don't know how many decades, centuries, you name it. We had some of the finest, departments in our government in terms of like expertise, and the people that dedicated their entire lives to those areas of expertise, and they were just thrown away like they were meaningless, like nothing mattered, and just the callous disregard was just heartbreaking, I think. And they're people. At the bottom of it, they're people. Like they weren't evil. And the way that they've whipped up this fervor of like these people just sitting around and everybody's a DEI, and I mean, just the rhetoric was just shameful, like embarrassing. But who the hell am I going to yell at? You know what I mean? Like I have my vote. I used it. What else am I going to do? Protest? Write letters to my congressman? My congressman's one of the biggest assholes in government. What am I going to do? He's not going to listen to me. Like I just, it's a shame to feel so powerless, and to feel like the concepts that you had, the conception of your world, your government, your surrounding, like, is just so fundamentally at odds with what is the reality now. And it's deeply hurtful, but
everything's corrupt.
Yeah.
How's your Senator Jim? Is he also an asshole?
I don't know offhand. I live in Florida. Everything's messed up down here. I mean,
Yeah.
I could say something quite funny, but I'm going to hold. I'm not going to get into it. I do have something against my governor. He passed a law in the state of Florida that quite upset me, but I don't think I want to share it. So I'm sorry. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Back to open source and funding and since we use Mint, I don't know, I've heard numbers like every year that the support they get is quite successful. I don't know what their annual, I think once a year, whoever the lead guy is, puts out a thing about numbers. But I'm on linuxmint.com, and on their homepage there they have a donate button. I guess it's there all the time, but they seem to do pretty well, because I don't know, it seems like on a yearly basis they raise several million, or somewhere between $1 and several $1 million a year. I mean, they're not printing money, obviously, but far more than other projects, I guess I would say so. But I guess they take a subtle approach to getting people to donate to support. So, but anyway,
well,
They're
I
also
give my
transparent about
£4
it.
a month.
Like that? I'm sorry.
Oh, do you?
No, just say I give £4. I mentioned on the last one that it came up that you got a special. You went into the a special Discord, and when you click on it, you end up in just the mass thing. So it's still just the mass thing. So I'm
Oh,
still
yeah, that's
upset.
right.
I've not got my special elite donators Discord. But I'm only joking, really. I was only teasing before. That was being sarcastic again, but it's good. I mean, again, I'm really enjoying Mint. So I thought, £4. I mean, what's £4? It's not in your money. I think is it about $40 or something at the moment in the States? I think I made that joke last time. No, about £4. That's about $5. I think it is. So I mean, it's a small amount to donate for such an incredible distro. I think more people, if more people give to their distributions, they could go a lot further. Anyway, I'm taking it off the subject now.
No, I don't think it was off subject. I think you were spot on. Yeah. Um, but like Eric was saying, that the whole open source, oh, it's free, why do we have to pay for it? Well, you use it and you get some benefit from it. It's probably a good idea to throw them, like you said, a couple of pounds a year. And if enough people did that, that would help sustain them and improve the, whatever open source project they're doing. So, but anyway.
It
There
always
used to be a
surprises me
really
how.
good system. Sorry, Eric, go on.
I was just gonna say it really surprises me how little some of these, projects get in terms of funding. I think just a few of the things that I use, just software and things like that. Like in the last few months, I've kicked $5 here, $5 there. Not a lot of money, but what I can spare. And it always surprises me, like, oh, we've raised $42 in the last 6 months, and it's like, wow, like okay. And you think like, well, how many hundreds of thousands of people are using this piece of software? And if you could just get, and again, like you said, we saw if someone does put up the message and asks, then they tend to get much more on that front. If you're not going to ask, yeah, you can't expect to get it, surreptitiously, but at the same time, I guess maybe, I don't know. I guess I just expect more participation, more people being generous, but anyway, yeah.
There used to be a really nice system. I don't know if it still exists, where you would put in an amount per year that you could afford, which is basically the same as I do. I give 120. I worked £120 a year that I put aside for this, so I just split it up to the ones I'm using. I'm sort of retired, but I'm not on pension yet, so I just live off my savings. But I just do what I can at the moment, and so I put £120, and then I divide it. But there was a whole system for you could just say I want to give this amount, and then it was automatically divided between the software, the developers, or even media producers, content producers. But I think that faded away. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. No, I don't. I'm
Mm-mm.
sorry.
It was a while ago. I'll have to try and look for it. It was a good. I thought it was a good system, but yeah, it just
So it
suddenly
was
just
some sort of
faded away.
organization that set up a site or some payment, and you could
Yeah, I think it was before
say,
Patreon. So you could, instead of like now, you contribute X to a particular content producer. You could set like, I want to give £120 a year. These are the 10 people at this moment I want to contribute, and your money was split as you say, I want to give 20% to this one, 5% to this one, 10%, and then maybe next month you change it and different people got different money. So, but that
yeah,
seems to have faded away. I don't remember the name of it now, but that always seemed to be a good idea, because then you could set what you could afford, and then you could always change it as you were. If you stopped using a piece of software, you could add another one, different one in, and then withdraw it. So, I don't know.
And I think that's why people will give to a like Free Software Foundation or something that they could then distribute the funds. I agree. It seems more efficient than going to 10 different places or however many. If you're, I don't know. I think a lot of this is why Patreon has been so popular, because you can have a single platform and do a lot of the same, that kind of thing. So, because it does get confusing whenever you've got Ko-Fi and just all the different ways to, GitHub yourself. You can
Buy me a
sponsor on
coffee.
GitHub, and yeah. And all of a sudden you've got 8 different places you're going to renew something and trying to keep track of what's what. And because a lot of them, the software will be called one thing, but who you're donating to is either a person or an entity that is not immediately apparent, like what it's associated with. So you're like, you get a charge and you're like, what is this for? I don't remember. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
Oh, I was going to say, actually, Charlie reminds me there's an organization, they're kind of like the middleman. So if a company's using a product and they'll say, okay, you're using this open source product, and they basically a charge back if they can talk the company into do this. I don't remember the detail, but I heard an interview with a guy the CEO of this company and whatever, and they basically they're the middleman to try to collect a fee for using open source products, and then they dole it out to the company or the group or the organization that's providing the open source product. And I can't remember. It's been around for a while. It's growing, but obviously that's a slow, painful.
Is that the Open Collective?
It could be. It could be.
Is that what it's called?
So,
Open Collective? It sort of just rings a bell.
yeah, it sounds familiar. But anyway, when you were talking about a central place and distributing money, it made me think of them. So, but anyway.
Well, I just installed Brave Origin on Arch just to see what it's about. So, I mean, it's Brave.
I'm sorry, what was that
That's
again?
for sure. I installed.
You said a magic word that brought Bill alive. The A
Arch.
word.
Yes. Sorry, didn't realize what you meant there for a second. Well, technically, it's CachyOS. It's not just Arch, but
Yes. Tell me more.
I still haven't managed to switch off of it. I complained about it, and I'm just lazy enough that I've put enough effort into setting it up that now I'm like, I don't know if I want to actually.
A sports car of a distro, though. No mistake.
It's not bad, but man, did they update their kernel a lot. Holy cow.
Yeah.
And which, of course, necessitates a reboot. So it's like I've rebooted more in the last 2 weeks. I think in the last 2 years combined.
That's why I only run. I mean, Vanilla Arch is the same way, and I only run the update once a week on that. Otherwise, because it just trickles down. It's completely different way of managing software.
Well, something else I noticed is it had 2 kernels. It had the 618 and the 707 or something like that. And I'm like, I don't need to compile that crap, because that's the other thing I noticed is that there's, I guess it's because it's a custom kernel, and then the DKMS stuff, like it takes a lot longer to compile an update. You know what I mean? To compile those kernel extensions, noticeably longer than on just Vanilla Arch. So
they have a lot of out of tree modules. Just
there's like 4 or 5 on my system. I'm not sure if it's just I don't know if it's the firmware stuff for my, like if there's some kind of hardware specifically, there must be. So yeah, it's I think it's 3 or 4 that it's doing with each, and then I realized it was doing it for 2 kernels, and I'm like, okay. So I just yanked the 6 kernel because I'm on the 7. I have no reason to use the 6.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, yeah, I mean it's fine. I mean, other than the updates, I mean it's fine. It's Arch. I guess I had my love affair with Arch, and now I'm just sort of not jilted lover, but just kind of like I'm over it. So I'm perfectly comfortable with Pac-Man and all of that stuff and the AUR and like everything that I used Arch for a long time, so I'm well versed in all of it, and it's fine. I was really thinking that I'd spend some time with OpenSUSE, and I have Tumbleweed on my little Latitude tablet thing, and it's fine. I mean, the only complaint I've heard people bring against OpenSUSE or Tumbleweed is something about the NVIDIA drivers, and they tend to be behind on that. So if you're gaming and you have an expectation of like the latest drivers, that could be a problem. There's just something about OpenSUSE where they don't keep up to date on certain stuff like that, which for me, I don't care. I mean, that doesn't make a difference to me, but otherwise,
recently you've installed it.
Yeah. So my friend Nate from the Linux Saloon podcast, Cubicle Nate, I've known him for a long time, and he's always been, the OpenSUSE guy, and he's tried to convince me over the years to use it, and I have over time, but I always end up having some weird problem with OpenSUSE where it's like there's a hardware issue or some sort of stability thing, or something just runs very poorly, or something's not available, or I mean, there's just always some friction there that has made it difficult to use. And I've just always, I've tried it for a little while, and it's like any other rolling release, all the software's there, and instead of the AUR, you have the OBS, which is pretty cool because mostly everything that isn't in the repositories is in the OBS in some way or another. And so, I mean, it's a pretty complete experience. It's just different.
It's the first distro I ever used.
So that bringing
SUSE.
Me too. Well, one of the first. I had the box. I bought
CD
the
on a
had
magazine.
that box set. You could buy it at Best
It
Buy.
looks so cool.
Oh,
Yep.
I wish I had it now.
Yep. I had it for a long time, and then I guess when I moved from New Jersey to Florida, I ditched it for some reason.
Yeah.
Anyway. They're switching now. They're getting rid of Grub, aren't they? And they're switching to System D. That's why I was asking. I'm not sure if it's happened yet, but I was just wondering if you. I know that it won't backdate, sort of thing, but the new ones are going to be System D.
Yeah, and Pop OS used System D boot as the default, so I got used to it under Pop. So instead of Grub. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is actually kind of easier when you look at it the way it's structured and the way you add like entries, and it's easier to deal with. Like Grub always feels like a little bit of like fairy dust you're kind of sprinkling on there, and it
feels like a black
I don't know. It just has that. Yeah, it just has that feeling of this has been around for decades and has inherited every little tiny weird change that someone needed over that time. A lot of it was fighting with BIOSes from commercial manufacturers where they're trying to work with Windows on, secure boot and all that stuff. And it was, shutting out different, I don't know. It just always seems like a hassle. And then you've got UEFI on top of that. And I don't know. Grub can be a weird animal.
And then when you got the command, you got the Grub command line there. Oh, that was awful. It was like game over. You could spend 9 hours looking at forums trying to solve your problem. It's quicker just to reinstall the whole thing. That was.
I think it's Cache. They have multiple boot systems. Like you pick, I think it's Cache where the default is a weird one I've never seen, and then they have Grub and they have System D, and then there's like 2 other ones. Yeah, and
they got a refined, I think.
Yeah,
which looks cool and all. I really don't need any. Like this machine right here has got Windows on a separate NVMe drive. I don't even mess with Grub for that. I don't even have OS Prober enabled. I'll just hold down the F8
Yep.
when I start it and
Yeah.
go to the UEFI menu and boot into Windows if I need to. But
What boot? Does Linux Mint use grep, or what do they
Yeah.
use? They use grep. That's what I
yeah,
thought.
Yeah.
but you'll only ever see it if you've installed it next to Windows, or if it
Oh,
sees
right,
Windows
yeah.
somewhere, or
Yeah,
if you change it yourself, the settings, and then cross your fingers that it actually worked, because it's always felt a little obtuse to me the way the settings work, and you've got Linux default, and then you've got the default command line, then you've got the other command line. I don't know. But then you change all those settings, but none of them are going to take effect unless you execute that update grub command.
Mm.
So, and you don't have any of that weirdness with system deboot, because that's a different animal. I think system deboot is more of a shim for the UEFI than anything else. It's not doing anything magic on top of it. Just booting.
Yeah, I haven't. I remember first whenever I started using Pop, like it felt really like jarring because I was so used to Grub and never had tried system deboot, and like I remember it not picking up my Windows install, and then the way I sort of thought of it, and someone had mentioned this, like, why do you expect Grub or your bootloader to handle multiple operating systems? Like that's actually, if you think about it, kind of a weird thing, because it's supposed to service the system that it's booting, not necessarily be a bridge to call a different bootloader. Yes, it's a convenience factor, but it's not any harder to just push. For me, it's F12, but to push the key whenever it boots. And the only argument there is, well, if you don't sit there in front of it to boot from, you miss your opportunity to press the key. And then if it's Windows, you got to wait for the damn thing to boot or force it off, or, but it's just a different way to think about it. And really, I think a lot of ways it's separations of concern, and, the idea of reusing the same EFI partition can get messy because, you're potentially overwriting things. So actually just having two separate partitions for that stuff too. My disk has probably 8 different partitions because of that kind of stuff, where it's like all of the Microsoft junk that it needs, and it's probably 4 or 5 partitions on its own. And then a separate, I still have my swap partition instead of a file. I mean, I use them interchangeably. It depends on the system. It's already defined on this one, so I just keep reusing it. And then, a separate boot partition for, so, it's to me, it's just easier to keep it separate now that I've been using systemd and kind of gotten my head around that, like not expecting, although you're right, the Refine is kind of cool. What is it, PackEOS, or what's the one that has the all the cutesy little like chicks and like anime type stuff? What the heck is it called?
I don't know. I think.
Oh yes.
I think Garuda's got a cool one too.
Pika OS.
Oh,
Pika OS. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And it uses Refined, which I haven't seen in a while. Yep. And yeah, I was testing it out, and I was like, oh yeah, Refined. This is pretty cool.
Now, system deboot, if you are using that and you find it doesn't see your Windows install, the Arch Wiki is really well laid out for system deboot, and it's just a matter of adding a file to the entries for to direct it to the Windows UEFI file is really all that is. And you can add a couple things in there.
To what? What's it called again? What was that other operating system you mentioned? Wiblos.
Now it's on Arch.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, but there's good information.
Do you have Windows on your computer, Bill?
It's
you've
here.
gone down in my estimation.
It's on here. because when I bought this motherboard, it had 2 slots for NVMe drives, and I don't use NVMe for long-term storage. I've got a Seagate Iron Wolf in there for that, and so I thought, crap, I'll just put a small NVMe in there and just install Windows. And it's not a registered or activated version of it either. Surprisingly, this motherboard acts like it's never had Windows on it. So maybe whoever first built it used it for Linux. I don't know. But who cares? I'm only going to use it in those rare occasions. Leo says micro slop. I've never used it in anger, but it's on there if I do run into some weird situation where I need it.
Don't listen to Leo. He's a filthy Mac user.
He is.
No,
Mac.
Is he really?
Mac, I thought he was all about Fedora or Pop back in the day.
No, he has an iPhone. He's all in on the.
Oh,
on the
so
Apple
he's
stuff.
jumped ship. Okay.
No, I mean he still does. Obviously, I'm just teasing him, but yeah, he prefers to go Apple using Apple
Right
instead of
tool for the
Google
right
or-
job.
Yeah,
Well, no denying, I guess, that for content creators, he probably runs into a lot less friction using that Mac than we do. I feel like banging my head right straight through my desk sometimes.
I have 2 old MacBook Pros from a previous employer in my closet here. They're Intel based. One of them I put Manjaro on it because you could do that, and the other one's just not interested in using them. Just for long-term use of using a PC or even using Linux. It's like, yeah, no thanks when it comes to Apples, but that's just me.
If I ever came across one, I'd probably end up donating it or something.
Yeah. 2015, 2016 models. So.
I mean, I had a MacBook once. I bought it, and this was in South Africa, where I think it cost 20,000 rand, which at the time I think was about $2,000, which was a lot of money. It was a huge amount of money at the time, especially when somebody earned what got paid 10 rand an hour if you're working in a shop, which was about $1 an hour or something like that. They got paid, and there was an issue with the screen, so it kept pixelating, and Apple wouldn't admit it. So I spent all this money, which was it was huge money in South Africa, and finally after about 3 or 4 years and all these groups getting together and protesting about this issue, they finally said, "Oh, we'll fix it." But by that time, the thing was out of date, and it had about 1 more year left, and you couldn't install Mac OS or whatever it was called back then. I can't remember now. I think it was Snow Leopard or something, and so I got that fixed for free, but it was too late. So even then, that was the last time I wouldn't even consider buying another Mac after that. I've had a chance to vent to live finally. After that's about 10 years ago. I've been waiting to say that live on a podcast.
you got it. You got your revenge.
I got it in finally.
Mac is really, I guess the one thing you can say about it, and I don't even know if this is 100% true, is the consistency of it. And I think that would be the strength. I mean, you have the sort of Unix underpinnings and whatever, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Every time I use it, I feel like it's so clunky.
Yeah, consistently annoying for me, but
yeah, the UI is just really bizarre to me,
Yep, I agree.
I just,
I think,
I can never seem to get used to it.
A lot of people switch over to these things, and I really think, I've heard that content producers say, "No, we can't do video on Linux. We have to do it on a Mac because we need X, Y, and Z." But you look at their content and you're saying, actually, there's nothing in your content. You might have a bouncing icon at some point in your, or the something swoops in, and you think, I'm not watching you for your fancy content. I'm here to hear what you've got to say. So just use Caden Live. Eat the dog food. That's my. It's if you keep jumping to something else, then what we've got will never get better. If there's always an out, maybe I'm the only person who thinks this way, and I agree. I'm not a purist. But I just think that if you can, it's better a little bit less quality on your bouncing logo, and use if you're talking about Linux, of course, then and maybe your audio isn't super spectacular because you can't put it through Pro Tools or something like that. But it's better. Why don't you just say that if you're a Linux podcast, use Linux.
There are no shortage of world-class professional tools for video editing, audio editing, motion graphics on Linux. There's no excuse for those people to say that they couldn't do something on Linux and they have to use Mac. The issue is more about their hardware. Like I know Matt from the Linux Cast, he had problems he didn't like Caden Live. He had trouble installing DaVinci Resolve to do his video editing. So he ended up getting a Mac, which I thought was a total cop-out. Like, you're telling me with all the people in the community, you couldn't figure out how to, either make Caden Live work for you or, get DaVinci Resolve installed, even though it has one or two limitations on Linux. It's really a matter of hardware for those people, because you've got Blender, you've got all kinds of top quality apps. So I think sometimes people have some trouble with their hardware, and then they'll go to Mac, for that reason.
But that's a good example actually, because Matt's the Linkcast's videos. There's nothing complicated about them.
No, it was his hardware. That's what I'm saying.
Easily.
He went for that reason.
Yeah, but they do this because they want to use something a bit more snazzy, because they want to have a bouncing logo or a banner that swoops in and makes them look really cool.
You got Blender.
But it seems to me to be giving up the ethics of their own open source. You're preaching open source, and then as soon as it becomes the ground becomes a little bit difficult, you jump onto another operating system that just because this is not. It sounds very critical, but everybody must make their own choices. But it's just for me as a non-content maker, But maybe if I started doing content, maybe the first thing I'd buy after 6 months on Linux would be a Mac. I don't know, but at the moment, that's the way I feel. Is that eat your own dog food.
I don't think that would be necessary unless let's say tomorrow you decided I want to learn video editing, and you went and tried figuring out how to install DaVinci Resolve, and you had trouble on your hardware. It wouldn't work. Some people, it works better in some distros than others. They have issues with it. There's different ways to install it. And, if you don't have the patience to figure that out, or it doesn't work with your video card, or various things like that. It's all hardware related. I would never do it. I've never used a Mac in my life.
But why would I want to use DaVinci Resolve? This is a high scale. It's not open source, but it's for something for doing really,
professional video editing. Yeah.
Professional videos, yeah. And a lot of people that you watch who are always complaining about DaVinci Resolve, are the ones that, and the videos are very simple. They're very, and Caden Live, which has come a long way since. When I first used it, it was something else, that Noah had just done his first video with of the animals, but now it's really quite a powerful tool, and. I just think it needs more respect, especially as it's cross-platform and everything. So it's really quite an incredible piece of software. And I think, it's just my opinion. It might take you a little bit longer, but the trouble is, it's like me now. I've switched from GNOME to I forgot the name. What is the name of the desktop I'm on?
Cinnamon desktop.
I couldn't remember I wanted to call it calamaris. I don't know why. But anyway, so and it's hard because you're instinctively following, but you have to go through that pain barrier of a few weeks to get to reset your brain, because your muscle memory and natural instincts of where to go for things need to be overwritten, and that's what when people talk about GIMP, they say, "Oh, GIMP is it's so difficult to use." That yes, it might be if you've come from Photoshop, but you've just got to go through that pain barrier, so you're a ninja on GIMP rather than giving up and using Photoshop. And the same with DaVinci. I mean, DaVinci Resolve, that's a powerful program used by professionals. Caden Live or one of the other small ones would be quite adequate for the videos that I see. I mean, I've done a little bit of video editing, and it seems like a lot of them could be easily done. Yeah, maybe you lose your bouncing logo and your swooshing and a couple of, but yeah, I know that the Linux Experiment, he's now going to switch. Actually, he's decided now that he's going to go open source with everything. So he's talking about it, but he wants to switch now to move to using Caden Live and using Graphene OS. So he's moving away from the dark into the light now, and so he's going to start using all open source tools, because he used DaVinci Resolve as well. So
Yeah, I think you said a key thing there, Charlie, that people that use Photoshop or some of the Adobe things, if they've been using that for, several years or 20 years, many people don't want to rewire their brain to use a lot of the open source tools. Now, maybe that's changing now with Windows 11, but some of it. But I think a lot of people don't have the patience or the mindset.
It is hard.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, if you've become so, you've spent years learning how to use something, and then suddenly now you have to go and start again. It's like in the Linux kernel with Rust. I can understand why people who are, experts in C that are now, they're trying to stop people, or they're fighting against the implementation of Rust in the kernel, because they're experts in their fields. They don't want to have to retrain, because now they won't be the ninja that they were. They're going to be back and become the novice. They're the novice of the new language, whereas they're the ninja of the language they learn. So there's a lot of pushback against Rust. But this is life evolves, doesn't it?
I think it.
I have to say once again, I'm never in that position.
Okay, so when you're talking about going from something like DaVinci Resolve to something like Caden Live, I think to get people to do that, it has to come from a place like ethics, where it really matters to you that you're using something that was developed in an open source way. That's what needs to matter to you more than the ease of use or the I learned how to do this thing, I don't want to switch up my workflow and all that stuff. The ethics has to really matter enough to move forward and change your workflow and use something that you're not used to. For me, it's always been that way. I'm far more willing, number one, to put up with a little bit of pain in order to use something that I think is ethically produced. But not only that, if I need to learn something in order to use this thing, I've always been willing to do that, because I really do enjoy using ethically developed tools, open source tools, over something that's just easier. Because I feel like if I'm doing that, then I'm just throwing my hands up, and giving up on these the open source software. And if I'm going to do that, why am I getting on in front of a camera and talking about Linux and open source software? So I think it has to come from a place like that. You got to be passionate about it, honestly. Because other than that, you're just somebody that uses a tool.
Totally. Was it you that I was talking to? I can't remember who it was now. Where I love going on like FlatHub or something and just browsing all the software that's there. It's amazing to me, the variety and like just sheer creativity of some of the stuff that's there,
Yeah. And
I don't know if you guys have used it, but that new Bazaar
Yes.
storefront,
yeah, I like it.
Very good. Yeah,
it's better than the GNOME software. It seems to.
Oh, by a long shot. Yeah.
Well,
it's very good.
When you've got a piece of software like OBS Studio, for example, there's a lot of plugins associated with OBS, and they don't install when you use the Flatpak. They don't install the same way they would if you installed it from a deb, or whatnot. But Bazaar sort of gives you another interface to add those plugins to the Flatpak, which laid out in a more intuitive way. Because Flatpaks are not always, especially plug-in type Flatpaks, they're not always easily searched because it's not just the name of the software. It's like a com.obs labs.all, and sometimes you don't always know what you're supposed to install. So Bazaar kind of makes it
There's
easier.
lots of little extras on Bazaar. It's great. If you log in, you log into using your GNOME login, whether it be GitHub or GitLab, then it stores all the ones that you've favorited, and then when you click on it, it'll actually give you
that was there.
Give you
I never even noticed it was there until you said it.
Yeah, and you log in, and then you get it'll take you to a page where you can install all your favorites. Gives you the one code which you can enter. I mean, I use an old-fashioned. I mean, I've got it all in my notepad where I just run my list, and it installs one by one. So they're all listed there, just so I can manage it. But it's a nice little extra where, if you do keep them all favorited, and when you want to reinstall, you could literally just log in, get the one line of code and paste it in, and voila, all your new all your favorite Flatpaks are there.
That's cool.
It also gives you a better warning about expired or end of life parts of the software. So if you can check a box to say, I don't want to see programs that have got end of life, so that's quite handy as well. End of life libraries I'm talking about. So you have to uncheck that, because sometimes people don't know this, and then they're looking for a piece of software and it's not coming up. It's like, well, it's not showing in Bazaar, but then you go in there and you see that you've got end of life, don't show end of life, and that hides that. I use it all the time because I just use Flatpak. I don't use. I rarely use Debian. I'm the opposite of Jim. But the whole Linux Mint store is just full of so much stuff. Whereas I just install that and I just see Flatpak, which is great for me.
Well, we've been at it about almost an hour and a half. You want to wrap it up?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right. Well, thanks everybody in the live stream. Join us sometimes. Come on camera. We love talking with you. We'll see you in a couple weeks.